Hi, Ben.
Howdy.
You've mentioned before how every leftist argument has a contradiction or like philosophical inconsistency.
Virtually all of them, unless you're perfectly, like Bernie Sanders is pretty consistent except for his 3 houses.
I was just hoping, I was just wondering if you could elaborate on some of those inconsistencies and point a few of them out for debate.
Sure. So let's take. But why don't you pick an example, and I'll pick. And I can pretty much do this off the top of my head. Why don't you pick an example of a lefty policy?
Minimum wage.
Okay, minimum wage is a great one. So minimum wage is supposedly designed toward creating better lifestyles for the poor. That's the goal of minimum wage, right? The goal of minimum wage is somebody's earning $5 an hour. Now we want them to earn $7 an hour, and so we're going to mandate that we're going to pay $7 an hour. There's only one problem with this, which is, of course, there's a set line of profit for most businesses. If you raise the minimum wage, people get fired. So how do you justify the idea that you're going to make some poor people richer while making other poor people poorer because they lose their job now? Right? There are 2 inherent principles that are in contradiction. One is lower employment, and the other is higher pay. So there's a contradiction inherent there. And that's true for most leftist ideologies, which is why the only thoroughgoing, consistent ideology is basically communism. Right? The government should own everything, nobody has any rights, and we just decide for you what you earn.
What would you say about immigration in terms of consistency?
Okay, so the left was so to take an example, there's a contradiction. There are a bunch of contradictions with regard to. Are you talking about illegal immigration or legal immigration?
Illegal immigration.
Okay, illegal immigration. So the left suggests that as a society, it's not who we are to admit illegal immigrants. Okay, so the question becomes, are you willing to admit 6 billion people? Because it turns out that billions and billions of people want to come here. And the left will say no. So the answer is they're not for illegal immigration. They're for legal immigration. They just want it broadened. And even then, they have standards for what immigrants they want to come in. Because the fact is that if the left were to admit 6 billion illegal immigrants, this wouldn't be America anymore. It would be another country, and all the values they like would be gone. So all of their arguments, when you take them to their logical conclusion, don't make a whole hell of a lot of sense unless they're actually willing to take them to the logical conclusion. So it's your job in argument to force them to go all the way to the logical conclusion. So if they say illegal immigration should not be policed in any real way, then the answer should be, okay, what's your standard for how people get in then? Right? Is your standard that everyone gets in? That if you cross the border illegally, you get to stay? Because if that's the case, then we're going to have a really, really populous country really, really quickly.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.